And eventually you realize that the people around you no longer fit the person you're becoming. You still love them. You still remember exactly what they meant to you. But something has shifted. The conversations feel smaller. The room feels tighter, and you don't know why. Before we go any further, I need to say something plainly. If you're looking for an easy shortcut, if you think success is just going to fall into your lap without any real work on your part, this video isn't for you. And honestly, this channel probably isn't either. But if you're the kind of person who's actually willing to work on yourself, willing to pay attention, willing to sit still and truly listen instead of skimming past it, then this one was made for exactly you, and it starts right now. This is Max Solven. Hit subscribe before we go any further, because I want to know how many of you out there are actually serious about this. I want to know how many of you are ready to do the real work instead of just watching another video and forgetting about it by tomorrow. Hit that like button too. And if you make it all the way to the end of this one, that alone tells me something real about you. It tells me you're ready to change. So let's get into it. Here's the truth. Growth is never free. Every single time you become more than you were, you create distance between yourself and the people who knew the old version of you. That distance is not a betrayal, it is a byproduct. But almost nobody prepares you for it. So when it finally comes, you mistake it for something wrong with you. You think you're being arrogant. You think you're being ungrateful. You wonder if you've become the kind of person who thinks they're better than everyone else. And so you shrink back down, just to keep the peace, just to stay comfortable, just to still belong. Today, I want to talk about 7 signs that you have outgrown the people around you. Not to make you feel superior, not to give you permission to abandon everyone you know, but so that you can finally recognize what's actually happening, because you cannot navigate a thing you refuse to name. These are quiet signs, subtle ones. You've probably felt several of them already and pushed them right back down. You've probably told yourself you were imagining it, but you weren't. And the sooner you understand what these signs actually mean, the sooner you can decide with a clear head exactly what to do about them. Now, before we get into the list, you have to understand something fundamental about how people actually work. Human beings organize themselves into levels, not levels of worth, levels of thinking, of ambition, of what they genuinely believe is possible. And most people spend their entire lives at the exact level they were simply handed. They inherit the beliefs of the people around them, and they never question those beliefs, because questioning them would mean standing apart from the group. Listen closely. The people around you are not neutral. They are a temperature, and you tend to settle at the temperature of whatever room you spend the most time in. You see, if you spend all your hours with people who believe life is something that just happens to them, you'll begin to believe that too. If you spend your hours with people who dream small, your own dreams will quietly shrink to fit right alongside theirs. This isn't weakness, it is simply human nature. We are built to belong, we are built to match the group, and for most of human history, matching the group was literally how you survived. But the exact same instinct that kept our ancestors alive can just as easily keep you trapped at a level you were always meant to leave behind. And here's what makes all of this so genuinely difficult. The people at your current level will not celebrate you for leaving it, they simply can't. Your growth is a mirror, and that mirror shows them something about themselves they'd honestly rather not see. So they'll pull you back, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently at all. They'll tell you that you've changed, and they'll say it like it's an accusation. They'll remind you where you came from. They'll make jokes at your expense, and all of it is designed, often without them even realizing it themselves, to quietly bring you back down to where they currently are. So if you've been feeling a strange discomfort around people you've known for years, and you can't quite explain it, and it's been slowly growing, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not imagining it. You are not being ungrateful. You are growing, and growth always disturbs the water around it. The signs I'm about to give you are exactly that water being disturbed. Learn to read them, because the people who read these signs correctly and act on them wisely go on to build lives they could never have built if they'd stayed exactly where they were. And the people who ignore these signs stay precisely where they've always been. You must take this seriously. The company you keep is quietly shaping the ceiling of your entire life. Read the signs, then decide with clear eyes exactly what you're going to do about them. The first sign: you've started hiding your good news. Something wonderful happens in your life, a win, an opportunity, a piece of real progress you worked hard for, and your first instinct is not to share it with the people closest to you. Your first instinct is to stay quiet, because you've learned somewhere along the way that your good news doesn't land the way it should. It gets met with silence, or a quick change of subject, or a comment that takes just a little bit of the shine off the truth. The people who have truly grown alongside you will celebrate your wins as if they were their own. They won't compete with your good news. They won't measure it against their own lives. They will simply be glad for you, plainly and completely. But the people you've outgrown will feel something entirely different when you succeed. They'll feel your progress as their own falling behind, and so they simply cannot give you the full, clean joy that real friends give without a second thought. You'll tell them about the promotion, and they'll ask if it means longer hours now. You'll tell them about the weight you've lost, and they'll warn you not to get obsessive about it. You'll tell them about the thing you're building, and they'll go quiet, or they'll find the one single flaw in it, or they'll casually change the subject back to something about themselves. And you'll walk away from that conversation feeling smaller than you did before you even shared the news in the first place. So the next time something good happens, you'll hesitate, and the time after that, you'll stay quiet altogether, until eventually you're living a whole life you no longer share with the very people who are supposed to be closest to you. I once knew a young woman who had started a small business. It was doing genuinely well, better than she'd ever expected it to. And she told me that she felt lonelier the more it succeeded, because there was no one left in her old circle she could tell without feeling like she had to apologize for it. She had quietly learned to shrink her own wins down into something small and unthreatening before she ever spoke them out loud, and she didn't even realize she was doing it until one day she noticed she'd simply stopped mentioning the business at all. That is the sign. When you find yourself editing your own life down, softening your victories, hiding the very things you're most proud of so that the people around you don't feel bad about themselves, you have outgrown that room. Your joy has become something you now have to manage instead of something you can freely share. And a life where you cannot celebrate your own progress out loud in front of the people you love is a life that will eventually feel unbearably lonely no matter how much progress you're actually making. Pay close attention to who exactly you hide your good news from. That silence is telling you something important. The second sign, the conversations have started to feel like reruns. You sit down with people you've known for years, and you already know exactly how the conversation is going to go before it even starts. The same complaints, the same stories, the same opinions you've already heard 100 times before. Nothing new is ever being built. Nothing is ever being genuinely questioned. No one is wondering out loud about anything at all. The conversation is a loop, and you've walked its circumference so many times now, you could do it in your sleep without even trying. Here's the truth. Conversation is one of the clearest measures there is of whether a relationship is still genuinely alive or whether it's simply repeating itself out of pure habit. Living relationships generate new thoughts, dead ones just recycle old ones. And once you've grown past the people around you, their conversations stop feeding you entirely. They stop stretching you in any direction. You leave those conversations feeling drained instead of filled because you gave your energy freely and got nothing back that you didn't already have going in. You'll start to notice you're the only one asking real questions. You'll notice you're the only one bringing up an idea, a book, a possibility, a plan, and it lands flat every single time. So you stop bringing these things up at all. You match the level of the conversation because it's simply easier than dragging it upward all by yourself over and over. And every single time you do that, you feel a little more like you're playing a role, reading lines from a script you wrote years ago, for a version of you that no longer exists anywhere except in their memory of you. You see, the people who are still genuinely growing want to talk about where they're going next. The people who have stopped growing only want to talk about what already happened, and about who did them wrong, and about the same handful of grievances they've been carrying around for a decade now. There's nothing evil about that at all. It's simply a different level. But you cannot spend all your hours in conversations that only ever look backward and still expect to keep moving forward yourself. The mind moves in the direction the conversation points it, and if every single conversation points backward, that's exactly the direction you'll quietly drift to. That is the sign. When you can predict every single conversation before it even happens, when nothing new ever enters the room, when you leave feeling emptied instead of filled, you have outgrown that table. It doesn't mean those people are bad people. It simply means the conversation has run out of frontier. And a mind that genuinely wants to grow needs conversations that still have frontier left in them. Conversations that still surprise you, that still push you somewhere you haven't already been 100 times before. The third sign, Your ambitions have started to embarrass them. You mention a goal, something big, something that genuinely stretches you, and instead of curiosity, you get a warning. Instead of, how are you going to do that? You get, don't get ahead of yourself. They tell you to be realistic. They tell you not to get your hopes up too high. They remind you of everyone they've ever known who tried something similar and failed. And they do it all with a tone that suggests they're protecting you, when really, underneath it, they're protecting themselves from what your own ambition quietly implies about their own choices. Here's the truth: your ambition holds up a mirror to the people who have none of their own. When you reach for something bigger, you are implicitly saying that bigger is actually possible. And for the person who long ago decided, somewhere deep down, that bigger simply wasn't possible for them, that's an uncomfortable message to receive, whether they say it out loud or not. So they push back, not really on the specifics of your plan, but on the very idea that you should even want more than what everyone else around you already settled for. They call it realism. It isn't realism at all. It's the sound of a ceiling defending itself. You'll say you want to change careers, and they'll immediately list every reason it won't work. You'll say you want to move somewhere new, and they'll ask why you can't just be happy right where you already are. You'll say you want to build something of your own, and they'll tell you all about the security you'd be giving up to try. And every single one of these responses gets dressed up as genuine concern. But underneath that concern is a quiet plea: don't leave the level we're all standing on together, because if you go up there, what exactly does that say about the rest of us who stayed behind? You see, the people who have already outgrown their own limits will meet your ambition with real excitement. They'll want to know the plan. They'll ask how they can help you get there. They'll believe you can actually do it because they've done hard things themselves before and they know firsthand that it's genuinely possible. But the people you've outgrown will meet your ambition with worry and doubt and a subtle, ongoing campaign to talk you back down into a size they're personally comfortable with. And if you listen to them long enough, you will eventually talk yourself out of the very thing you were built to do in the first place. That is the sign: when your dreams make the people around you visibly uncomfortable, when your ambition gets treated like a problem that needs managing rather than a fire that deserves to be fed. You have outgrown that particular circle. Your job is not to shrink your ambition down to fit their comfort level. Your job is to go find the people who won't need you to, because ambition surrounded by people who fear it slowly dies out over time, and ambition surrounded by people who genuinely share it catches like wildfire instead. The fourth sign: you've become the one everyone leans on and no one ever pours back into you. Somewhere along the way, you became the strong one, the one with answers, the one people call when things fall apart around them, the one who quietly holds everyone else together. And at first, it felt genuinely good to be needed like that. But now you've noticed that it only ever flows in one single direction. You give and give and give, and when you're the one who's struggling for once, there's no one at your level around to lean on in return. Here's the truth: relationships are supposed to be an exchange, not a perfectly even one. Nobody keeps an actual ledger in a real friendship, but over time, healthy relationships flow both ways. You hold them, and they hold you. You lift them, and they lift you right back. But when you've outgrown the people around you, you'll often find that the flow has quietly become one directional. You've grown into someone with more to give now, more perspective, more stability, more resources, and so you've become a source they simply draw from, but nothing ever flows back the other way. You'll notice that every conversation eventually turns to their problems. You'll notice that when you have a problem of your own, the room goes quiet, or the subject shifts away, or you get advice back that clearly shows they haven't grown enough themselves yet to actually understand what you're facing. And you'll start to feel a strange kind of exhaustion settle in. The exhaustion of always being the giver, of being surrounded by people and still somehow feeling like there's no one who can actually carry any of your own weight for you. That is a particular kind of loneliness, and it is one of the surest signs of all. I once knew a man who was the anchor of his entire family and his entire group of friends besides. Everyone came to him. He solved everyone's problems. He lent out the money, gave the advice, showed up in the middle of the night whenever someone needed him. And when his own life fell apart one year, he told me he looked around at all these people he'd carried for so long, and he realized that not one of them was actually capable of carrying him back. Not because they didn't love him, but simply because he had grown into someone they genuinely couldn't lift anymore. That is the sign. When you are always the strong one, always the source, always the giver, and there is no one left in the room who can pour back into you, You have outgrown that group. You need peers, not dependents. You need people who are also climbing so that when you eventually fall, there are hands at your own altitude ready to catch you. Being the strongest person in the room can feel like a compliment on the surface, but if you are always the strongest person in the room, you are simply in the wrong room because you will never be stretched, never be caught, never be pulled higher by anyone around you. You'll only ever be pulled on. The fifth sign, their problems have started to look like choices to you. This one is uncomfortable, and I want you to hear it carefully because it's genuinely easy to misunderstand. There was a time when you saw the struggles of the people around you simply as bad luck, as life just happening to them. But now, having grown yourself, you can see the patterns. You can see the choices sitting underneath the struggles, and it has quietly changed how you feel whenever they complain about it all. You see, growth changes your eyes. When you learn to take real responsibility for your own life, you begin to see responsibility everywhere else too. You start to notice that most of what people call bad luck is actually a chain of small decisions repeated over years and years. And once you've seen that clearly in your own life, you simply cannot unsee it in the lives of others around you. You watch someone complain about the exact same problem for the fifth year running, and you can see, with total clarity, that they are choosing it every single day and refusing every path out of it that's ever been offered to them. This creates a genuinely painful gap because they want sympathy, and you no longer have the same kind of sympathy left to give, not because you've become cold, but because you've learned that endless sympathy for a self inflicted problem doesn't actually help anyone at all. It just funds the problem further. So you sit there while they complain, and part of you desperately wants to say what you can see so clearly, and you already know that if you say it, they'll only hear it as an attack. So you say nothing, and a wall goes up quietly between you, one that wasn't there before. You are simply no longer speaking the same language about how life actually works. You see, when you're all standing at the same level, you all agree on the same story. Life is unfair. The world is against us. Nobody understands. That shared story is a kind of glue, and it holds the entire group together. But when you grow, you stop believing that story. You start to see your own hand in your own outcomes instead. And the moment you stop believing the shared story of victimhood, you become something of a foreigner in your own group. You still speak the same words, but you no longer actually believe them, and they can feel that difference, even if they can't quite name it. That is the sign. When you can see the choices sitting underneath everyone's complaints, and you no longer believe the story of helplessness that the group keeps telling itself, and you have to bite your tongue just to keep the peace. You have outgrown that mindset. Now understand this very carefully. This is not permission to become arrogant. It is not permission to lecture people who never asked for your opinion, but it is a sign, an honest one, that you now see the world differently than the people around you, and two people who see the world that differently simply cannot walk the exact same road forever. The sixth sign, you feel guilty for wanting more, and they are the reason why. This is one of the most subtle signs of all, and one of the most important because it works on you quietly from the inside out. You catch yourself apologizing for your own progress, downplaying what you've actually built, feeling a strange shame about wanting a bigger life for yourself. And when you trace that guilt back to its true source, it doesn't come from inside you at all. It comes from the people around you and how they quietly make you feel for reaching in the first place. Here's the truth. Guilt is one of the most powerful tools a group has for keeping its members exactly in place. Nobody has to say anything outright cruel. They just have to make you feel, in 1,000 small ways, that wanting more is somehow a kind of betrayal of where you originally came from. And so you start to feel like if you rise too high, you're abandoning them. You start to feel like your success is somehow an insult to their own lack of it. And you slow yourself down on purpose, without even fully realizing that's exactly what you're doing, just to avoid feeling that guilt. You'll turn down real opportunities, because taking them would mean pulling even further ahead of the people you love. You'll stay in situations far too long, because leaving would feel like leaving them behind. You'll hold yourself at a level that feels loyal on the surface, even though it's slowly draining something important inside you. This is the trap of loyalty deeply misunderstood. You've convinced yourself that staying small is somehow a form of love, that keeping yourself down at their level proves you haven't forgotten them. But it doesn't actually help them at all. It just wastes you. You see, you cannot lift anyone by staying down in the hole with them. The person who climbs out is the only one who can actually throw a rope back down to help. But guilt convinces you that climbing out is the selfish thing to do, that staying in the hole together is somehow the loving thing to do instead. That is a lie, and it is one of the most expensive lies you can ever choose to believe, because a life spent staying small just to make other people comfortable is a life that helps absolutely no one, least of all you, and least of all the very people you were trying to protect in the first place. That is the sign. When you feel guilty for wanting more, and that guilt traces directly back to the people around you, and you find yourself dimming your own light so as not to make them feel their own darkness by comparison, you have outgrown that dynamic entirely. Your growth is not a betrayal. Your ambition is not an insult. Rising is not abandonment. And the moment you finally stop letting guilt run your decisions for you, you will discover just how much of your own life you've been quietly holding back, all in the name of a loyalty that was only ever hurting everyone involved anyway. The seventh sign. You can already see the ending, and it doesn't include you. This is the last and the heaviest of all the signs, and it's the one that finally makes everything else clear. When you look at the people around you and imagine where their lives are actually heading, 5 years out, 10 years out, you can see it plainly. And when you honestly ask yourself whether you actually want to be standing there beside them, at that exact destination, the answer that comes back is no. Here's the truth. You're always heading somewhere. Every single person is on a road, and that road has a direction, and the direction is set entirely by the choices they make, day after day after day. You can read exactly where a person is going by simply watching what they do repeatedly over time. And once you've grown yourself, you gain the ability to see those roads with real clarity. You look at the people around you, and you can see, with almost painful accuracy, the destination their choices are quietly carrying them toward. For some of them, you look and you think, yes, I genuinely want to be right there, at that place, with that person 10 years from now. Those are your people. Hold on to them with everything you have. They are rarer than you know. But for others, you look at where their road actually leads, and something inside you recoils, not from them as human beings at all, but from the destination itself. You do not want to end up where they're heading, and you slowly realize that to keep walking beside them is to walk directly toward a place you've already decided you don't want to go. That recognition is one of the loneliest feelings a person can ever have. I once knew a young man who realized in his late 20s that if he kept spending all his time with the same friends he'd had since school, his own life in 10 years would end up looking exactly like theirs. And he genuinely loved those friends, but he did not want their future for himself. He told me it was the hardest thing he ever had to understand about himself, because it meant that loving someone and choosing to walk beside them are simply not the same thing at all. You can love a person deeply and still know, with total clarity, that you cannot follow them to where they're going. That is the sign, and it's the one that ultimately forces a decision. When you can see the destination of the people around you clearly, and you know in your bones that you don't want to arrive there yourself, you have outgrown that path. You do not have to hate them for it. You do not have to cut them off in some dramatic, sudden way. But you do have to be honest with yourself about the direction of your own life and about who exactly you're allowing to set that direction, simply by sheer proximity. Because the people you walk beside are the people whose destination you slowly drift toward, whether you consciously choose to or not. So here's what I want you to carry with you from all of this: 7 signs that you've outgrown the people around you. None of them mean those people are bad people. None of them give you the right to look down on anyone, but all of them are telling you something true about the direction of your own life. You've started hiding your good news. The conversations feel like reruns. Your ambitions embarrass them. You're always the one who gives and never the one who's poured into. Their problems now look like choices to you. You feel guilty for wanting more, and you can already see the ending, and it doesn't include you. Every single one of those signs is the water being disturbed by your own growth. And the question was never whether you've grown. If you're feeling these things right now, you already have. The real question is what you're going to do about it. Because most people, when they feel these signs, do exactly the wrong thing. They shrink back down. They talk themselves right out of it. They tell themselves it's arrogant to want more, and they settle back into the very room they'd already outgrown, and they stay there, small, for the rest of their entire lives. I'm telling you, this doesn't mean you abandon everyone you love. It doesn't mean you become cold or superior or cruel about any of it. Growth handled with contempt isn't growth at all. It's just a new kind of smallness wearing a different mask. But it does mean you have to be honest with yourself. It means you have to stop pretending you don't feel what you clearly feel. And it means you have to start being deliberate about who gets the most of your hours, because your hours are the raw material your entire future gets built from, one day at a time. You must understand that outgrowing people is not a failure of loyalty. It is simply the natural result of becoming more than you were before. A tree does not apologize for growing taller than the ones planted right beside it. It simply reaches for the light it was made to reach for, without guilt, without apology. And some relationships will grow right alongside you. Those are the treasures. Water them, protect them fiercely. Never take them for granted, not even for a single day. Some relationships will simply change shape over time, becoming something quieter, more distant, but still genuinely real underneath it all. And some will simply fall away entirely, and you have to let them go, without bitterness. All three of those outcomes are simply part of a life well lived. So look honestly at the people around you right now, not with judgment, but with real clarity. Ask yourself which of them light you up, and which of them wear you down. Ask which of them are still climbing and which of them have quietly decided to stop. Ask which of their destinations you actually want to share for yourself. Then, gently and deliberately, begin to give more of your hours to the ones who are rising, and less to the ones who only ever pull you down. You don't have to make any grand announcements about it. You don't have to burn anything down in some dramatic scene. You just have to steer quietly and consistently toward the light. The version of you 5 years from now, who had the courage to read these signs honestly and actually act on them, is going to be living a life the current version of you can barely even imagine right now. Not because you left people behind on purpose, but because you finally stopped letting mere proximity decide your entire destination for you. Read the signs. Honor the people who genuinely grew with you. Release the ones who couldn't, without resentment weighing you down, and keep climbing toward the light you were made to reach for in the first place. You must trust that the people who are truly meant to be in your life will be waiting for you, higher up the mountain, because that's exactly where the ones who are still growing always eventually end up. If you made it all the way here, to the very end of this video, that tells me something real about you. It tells me you're actually ready to work, ready to pay attention, ready to go build a better version of yourself, not just talk about it and move on. So head over to the channel right now and watch another one, because this is Max Solven, and the more of these you take in, the more you'll understand about how this whole game actually works. See you in the next one.